Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in strange times. Never before have the humanities been as important as today when we are beginning to bring machines into our social lives. We have begun to surround ourselves with machines that answer our questions, respond to our commands, machines that know how to navigate physical spaces of human social interactions. We are beginning to see machines that, as the manufacturer puts it, are able to recognize faces and basic human emotions, optimized for human interaction, able to engage with people through conversation. We are building machines that communicate their inner state to people in order to improve the interaction, like the robot Kismet that you see on the picture. Even machines that read your inner state and infer what you believe, that are capable to predict your beliefs and intentions, as the robot Leonardo, depicted here, does for certain limited contexts of interaction. So it seems that we are set on a course where we merely explore what we can do with social robotics. And given suitable political and economic support, we're only limited by our imagination. We live in strange times when there are millions of people who look for work and look for a new home. We are building machines that are supposedly taking care of us. We are fascinated by these machines and prefer them to real human beings because it is so much easier, it appears, to deal with them. We remain in control. Or are we? Social neuroscientists and cognitive science tells us that these machines work on what they call the low-level mechanisms of social cognition. We live in strange times because these machines are no longer tools. They are artificial social agents. They incline us to develop genuine emotions, even feelings of empathy for them, as human-robot interaction research has shown. In fact, very easily, we come to interpret them as agents that are not only social agents, but moral agents with rights. This picture that you see here, the last one, is a picture from an experiment where a person lies to another human being in order to protect a robot. So our sociobiological mechanisms of parental care seem to combine with our inclination to keep things simple cognitively, to remain in control. We seem to prefer to make friends instead of making friends. As psychologist and anthropologist Sherry Turkle observes, the performance of connection seems connection enough for us. There's still so much we do not know about our interactions, the risks, the opportunities, the benefits of our interactions with social robots. And yet, we have been entering steadfastly what Sherry Turkle calls the robotic moment in human social-cultural history. That moment where we contemplate social robots on the horizon. That moment says much about who we are and who we are willing to become. But the decision about who we are and who we are willing to become is not easy because we are caught in what I've called the triple gridlock of social robotics. We cannot evaluate what we have not carefully described. We cannot regulate what we have not carefully evaluated. But regulation, in turn, makes it impossible to undertake long-term studies in particular that would allow us to develop these careful descriptions. So at each of these links in the normal feedback between regulation, description, and evaluation, we currently have in the area of social robotics an impediment. At the same time, there are strong market pressures from the social robotics industry. There are predictions that the market will be in the trillions of dollars by 2025. So, in order to address this situation, we have in Aarhus developed a paradigm that we call integrative social robotics as a new format for research, design, and development of social robotics applications that can escape that gridlocked situation. How can integrative social robotics address the triple gridlock? I want to emphasize only two of the several principles that characterize the approach. First, we need to ensure that we bring a focus on values early into the development of social robotics applications. So we need to concentrate from the very beginning on what we can and should do. Of particular importance is what we call the non-replacement maxim. Robots may only do what humans should but cannot do. And we need to use humanities research, in particular also philosophical research on social phenomenology and ontology, in order to create a descriptive framework that allows us to bring all the relevant expertise into play when we develop social robotics applications. So let me address that second point in particular. At the moment, we don't have a good vocabulary to describe of what robots do. Is it more like the kind of training of behavior that we know from animal-human interaction? Currently, we describe robots on the model of human-human interaction. But that is grossly misleading. Humans can follow a rule. Something, at least that is what we so far still need to believe, something that is not human can only act in accordance with a rule, but cannot really follow a rule, because that requires a specific type of normative capacity, normative understanding. So in order even to formulate research hypotheses that do not from the very beginning prejudge and misleadingly describe what robotic capacities are, we need a new theory of sociality, a theory of asymmetric sociality. We need to develop and operate with a wide notion of sociality that rejects our traditional assumption that sociality, normative understanding, agency, freedom, all that which characterizes the human capacities of normative understanding is a package deal. We need to reject, in other words, the traditional notion of subjectivity. We need to understand what is going on in human-robot interaction on the model that I call the as-if of simulation. Robots simulate social interactions. And we need to describe very carefully in which ways they simulate which type of interaction. So we have developed a simple descriptive framework that allows us, with different notions of degrees of simulation, to describe very carefully what a robot does. A greeting of the robot Asimo can be described in one line of an expansion matrix of simulated interaction. It can be contrasted with what a robot of a different type does in the greeting situation. Moreover, the new descriptive framework also includes a new understanding of what a social action actually is or how it exists, we tend to believe that there is some truth about a social interaction. But rather, social actions are ontologically highly complex. They involve descriptions from at least 7 perspectives. In other words, the new task for humanities researchers, in particular philosophers and anthropologists, is to create what I call a library of new forms of asymmetric sociality. Only once we have that library, we have the descriptive means to formulate research hypotheses on the basis of which we can evaluate whether these forms of robo-supported therapy are forms that we wish to endorse in our societies, whether the situations depicted in these pictures are in agreement with our cultural values and our cultural norms. So instead of asking, should we be worried about robots replacing us in the future, we should ask what robots can do that humans cannot do. Robots generate new forms of experienced sociality. In fact, as I've tried to suggest before, they work on our social cognition, implicit, pre-conscious social cognition. They work on our social brain. That also opens up new opportunities. So we are currently exploring in Aarhus a new communicational format that we call fair proxy communication, where we use a robot in communicative situations that are affected by implicit social prejudice. We ask, will it be useful or beneficial to use robot-mediated communications in a scenario where a gender-related conflict has to be resolved? And will it be useful, will it enhance social justice in our society if we use robot-mediated communication formats in order to conduct job interviews? In short, social robotics is always the engineering of culture. And while we need to be alert to the risks, it also might present us with new opportunities, since when robotics engineers collaborate with humanities, new and very valuable forms of social-cultural interactions may be generated.